So, the first thing I want to know from you is that do you recall when you heard heavier rock or metal music for the first time?
I do not. When I grew up, I had a bigger, older brother who was a teenager at the time, when I was a kid. So, and he was a music fan, and his friends were, and so all my earliest memories were somehow, in some way or form, if it wasn't music, it was definitely like TV or radio, or there was some kind of media was sort of present. But my earliest memories of ever are it has heavy metal influences there. I think that because that was the trend at the time. I think this is early '80s, so I remember so clearly like Kiss and the first bands that really made an impression on me was Kiss and the Mötley Crüe and Wasp, Twisted Sister, and that was because they were current at the time. 1984, I was 3 years old.
Were those bands also the bands that made you become a musician, or how did that happen for you?
No, I mean, of course they sparked what they represented with, there's a through line with those bands that I just mentioned. They were all sort of outrageous. They all looked pretty much the same at the time, even though I was more of a fan of the masked Kiss. But if you look in OK in 1984, what you saw was literally all those bands from side, like you just flip this pages and you have all those bands on posters, and my brother gave me those posters. He was like, yeah, if you like that, just have it. And I loved that. I loved how they looked. I loved how they sounded, and I loved the expression that they had. We're not gonna take it. I want to rock. I want to be somebody. Couldn't get better. Shout to the devil. That was just my first, like, belonging into, like, finding a genre. But from a 3-year-old point of view, like, it's so basic and infantile. But as the doors had been kicked open for liking music, it was just game on after that in terms of finding music. And what inspired me later was a mixture of hard rock and a lot of 60s music. Bands from the 60s was another thing that really gripped me early in my life. When I was, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years old, I started listening, like really being interested in the Beatles, Rolling Stones, Doors, Jimi Hendrix, all those bands. Pink Floyd was a huge influence for me. It has always been. I don't think that people recognize that, but when you're really young and you're formative, whatever you're listening to will influence your, not necessarily how you want to sound or like image wise, but it also might affect how you write songs. If you didn't like music as a kid, you only listened to like child's music, and then the first thing that you hear from the grown-up world is like Ramones, and that's the only thing you like, the odds of you playing simple music, I mean simple as in verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, end, is pretty big, because that will be your go-to thing. Whereas one huge album for me, which was essentially a double album, was A Nice Pair with Pink Floyd. I got that at the same time as I got Kiss Alive, the first one. So when I started playing guitar, I sat and played along to Kiss Alive and A Nice Pair. And A Nice Pair is the first 2 Pink Floyd albums. Piper at the Gates of Dawn, Saucer Full of Secrets. That's the sort of shit that I sat and played guitar to when I was like 7. That tells you a little how that skewed my writing. And then I started listening At the same time, I sat and sang along to the Doors, and melody-wise, I was like, it was like very, very loose and boundary-less music.
But was the guitar like the main priority in the early days, and then you hopped into vocals like later on?
I was not a vocalist at all until I was 18. We had just recorded the first demo with Repugnant. At the time of recording the demo in February 1999, I was not the vocalist. The bass player in the band was, and I didn't like his vocals. I like his vocals in his other band, but I didn't like it in Repugnant. He was sort of a new school. I mean, to me, it was new school, like that sort of like, and I wanted it to be like Shuck and Jeff Becerra, and I wanted it to sound like a 1985 death metal. So I was like, I think I can sing like that. So I'm gonna sing on the demo, and we'll figure it out. So we erased his vocals, and then I sung on the first Repugnant demo. And all of a sudden I was a singer and guitar player, and that was never my intention whatsoever. It just ended up that way. It was the same thing later with Ghost.
I was actually going to ask you next that what kind of experience it was to go to extreme vocals. Were you losing your voice all the time, and were there like some specific songs that you sort of tried out when you became the frontman, or were you like immediately writing your own music only, or?
Usually on rehearsals I didn't sing. I was just playing guitar, and then I had to quickly sort of adjust when we started playing live and just start singing, which I remember was a little bit of a thing because I don't know if this is a thing anymore because technology is so much better and people have in-ears and stuff. But back then, when we rehearsed, it was just like full on, like 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10, so loud. And we didn't have a PA strong enough for vocals to penetrate through that wall of sound. It was one of the first times outside a studio I actually heard myself singing was when we played a live show and you heard your own vocals through a monitor or like a wedge. And so it was very ergonomically poorly, there was no adjustment whatsoever besides the one that you had to do crash coursely. So I was always, anytime we'd done a show, I always lost my voice or had an extreme neck pain, and it was it was very, very ad hoc and buffoonishly sort of done. Nowadays, because I've done 800 shows with Ghost and I've done so much other things, I'm not sure I could. I mean, I can sing like that, but I don't know if if it would be beneficial for my vocal cords to do it nowadays. I don't think so.
Repugnant lasted for 6 years, and after that you did a transition to Subvision, which was more like clean vocals based. So do you feel that those growling years helped you with the clean singing?
From a respiratorial point of view, it probably was. Because I learned how to sing, like just the physical exercise of singing. However, I have sung to music ever since I was a kid. So the concept of vocalizing music has never been new to me. It's a big difference singing to music, singing along with music, and then grab a microphone and leading the vocals. Especially from Repugnant and the growling to essentially first singing in Subvision, was a period of learning that I think went through Subvision into Ghost. Because on the first Ghost record, I sung in a similar way to how I sung in Subvision, which was pretty unlearned, like not very skilled singer. I know I'm naturally gifted, if you will. I knew that I had a knack for singing, but then you have to learn how to sing properly. And that really started on Meliora, I think. That was the first time I really started like stretching vocally, and then it's just gotten better after that.
It was recently in news that your first ever solo album Passiflora was leaked on YouTube. So how important album that was for you on your vocal journey?
Good question. I've never really thought about that. I remember that when I wrote the songs and had recorded them, I was a little bit irritated that I had not written them in a key that was ideal for my singing. You know, it's amateur mistakes. There are some songs on Opus that are like that. I should have written them in another key. I should have detuned them or to more fully. And it's not too late. I can do that. I think Passiflora was definitely it's a super ambitious record. I was so filled with emotions and creativity. You know, I had a real vision for that record. I had a real vision for that band. It literally really didn't go anywhere. So when that happens, you know, if you write a love letter and that just like disappears into the void, you would just try to distance yourself from it as soon as possible, and that's what I felt.
So when you hopped into Ghost, you obviously also took the masks. So did you try out in Ghost like singing on a mask before you hopped into this chapter, or how did that happen for you?
No, that was a heat of the moment, just bite the bullet sort of situation. Since I, for a long time, thought that Ghost songs that I was writing 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10 into the recording of Opus, I wrote them and the vocal lines because I thought that, essentially, I thought that Messiah Marcolin was going to sing on it. Him or someone like him, I saw like that was going to be like the main character. And then as that was slowly not materializing, and I guess I was one of the last ones to sort of find out, it was Lee Dorian or Will Palmer, I don't remember, or maybe it was both of them who said on Rise Above, they were like, well, we signed you because of the demos, and you sing on them, so why don't you sing? And I was like, I don't know, you know, it's not what I imagined, and I don't want to reimagine anything, but I'm also practical. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm not the guitar player anymore then. So I get to sing, and then I became the singer. So get that mask on and just basically take all the attributes that I sort of imagined on someone else and just dress up as that character and deal with it.
With Ghost, your career went upwards pretty much straight away. So were you ready as a vocalist to do show after show after show on tour, or was that like a learning experience for you as well?
It was definitely a learning experience. Luckily, at the time, it wasn't that much of a strain. I mean, on the first album tours, we were mostly opening up for other bands. So our show was, if we played everything, including Here Comes the Sun, what's that, 35 minutes of material or something like that. It wasn't like a big ask. It wasn't that hard. Had I at the time stepped into another band that had like a more fully fleshed out repertoire and we were going to play 1.5 hour shows, I would have not been able to do that.
When it comes to warming up for shows, did you have some kind of like warm-up routine back in the days, and how has that evolved today? Do you have a specific warm-up routine that you follow today?
No, I've tried at points to warm up in the classic way, you know, that
scales.
sort of stuff. Doesn't work for me. I don't know why. So it's better for me to just turn the stereo on and just like start singing to songs. Just like take a few songs that I know that are in my wheelhouse, and then we just before the show we meet up in the we have like a warm up room, and we just go in there and play 1, 2, 3 songs, and
that's it.
That's it.
So are there like some specific foods or drinks that you have felt that they help you with the singing, or on the opposite side something that you don't want to take before the shows that you have felt that they harm your vocal cords somehow?
Alcohol in general is really bad for your vocals. And it's bad for touring in general because it will dry you out. So water is sort of the opposite, ironically, even though it's wet, both. You need to drink a lot of water. And I always drink this, it's a pretty classic sort of singer drink where you take like a big root of ginger, you chop that up into little dices and a whole root of ginger into a cup or a container, and then you have one whole lemon that you just split in two, and then honey and warm water. And that's my sort of drink that I have on stage. Without it, I tend to go a little bit sore. If I have it and I'm sort of not sick, I don't really have a problem when I'm on tour, unless there's like some sort of outside element, like a hot, like a really, really effective AC can fuck your voice up like severely. What has happened a couple times, unfortunately, is that when you're playing outdoors and it's very warm and it's been dry for quite a while, there's this sort of dust of sand, and if that gets into your system, that is also like a super potent upfucker, which you can't really do anything about except not playing. And that has happened a couple times, and that's really irritating when it happens on a festival stage, especially the bigger you get. That happened last time we played at Hellfest, for example. It was just super warm, and you just have this sand like kicked up during the day, and that found itself into my system, and then you just couldn't sing. It's like throwing a wrench, like literally into machinery, just like.
So far you have released 5 albums with Ghost. Are there like some specific albums that you could pinpoint where you have felt that you've taken a big step forward as a vocalist? Learned something new about yourself, for example?
Meliora definitely was a big step forward because I was working with a producer, Claes Åhlund, and he works with pop, and he would just like, oh, can you do that again? Can you do it higher? Can we sort of, he said those right things. I think you can actually go 1 octave higher on this one. I think you can probably hit this note. Okay, and then when you're recording, you have the luxury of being able to, sometimes in order to sing certain things, you have to make like a face in order to hit a certain note. You need to dare try to sing a certain way. And if you're going to do a harmony that's super high, you might do it in a way that doesn't like sound super cool just on its own. And there was a lot of exercise like that. I've never really worked with I've never taken lessons in singing, but I have the equivalent of seasons of singing lessons just because I've sung so much on recordings. Because after Claes, when I met Vincent Pontare and Salem and Val Fakir and Max and all those guys, all of them come from the pop world where you sing a lot.
I was actually going to ask you next about this. Has that sort of like evolved you to what you are today as a singer?
Absolutely, 100%, of course. Absolutely.
I was going to next ask you that have you taken any vocal lessons in your life?
I've only taken one that I've sort of like showed up for like a teacher. And I don't think we didn't get anywhere because I was not a great singer to articulate what I wanted help with. And so I think she sort of like just assumed that I wanted to learn how to sing. So I just remember that we sort of really didn't hit it off. And this was before Ghost as well. I've had 2 sessions with vocal coaches that wasn't like, oh, you want to learn how to sing. It was, one was in America on our first tour because I had lost my voice. So the only thing that we did was basically breathing exercises so that I had a voice at all. And then I've been to a vocal coach here in Stockholm who's fairly known actually from TV. Swedish people might know who I'm talking about. She's known for a little finger thing that she didn't do on me, but there's a way to hit a certain high note if you touch it from posterior. So I went there not to have that done to me, but she has an actual neck massage that you can sort of massage your jaw and your ears. That was pretty cool. So we didn't really do a lot of singing. It was more like a alternative massage thing. That was pretty cool. I mean, I really liked the idea, but that was just like a one-time only thing. For no special reason. It was just like I just wanted to try it.
The upcoming album from Ghost, entitled Skeleta, will be out on April 25th. Were there like new things that you tried vocally on this upcoming album?
Well, I don't know. Probably not off the top of my head. There was moments when there was a lot of like bits and pieces of sort of kind of naked vocals in there that aren't as dubbed as I usually do them. I like stacking up vocals just because I like that sort of, I mentioned Ramones before. Like that was one of the, I mean, despite what I said before, I'm actually a huge Ramones fan. I'm very influenced by Ramones. But I'm just saying that they are an example of a band that people think are, just pure punk. But they aren't just pure punk. It's pop melodies, pop songs, and Joey always like stacked up his vocals. How you get that sound of Joey Ramone is not only by singing like this, it's by stacking the vocals. That's why I started doing that already in Subvision, because I wanted to have that sort of magically chorusy Ramones sounding sonics, basically. And when you do that a lot, it does make vocals sound really big. It makes it sound really, especially when you layer it up with harmonies and stuff, that's how you get that sort of AOR, big, fleshed out, wide a cappella sound, basically. And what you can do then as a little trick, if you just want to make it sound a little different, is like, don't dub. And then all of a sudden you get a little bit more of a naked feeling, which I don't like, because I don't like my voice much. I only like it when it's dubbed. I don't like it when it's not dubbed.
So what were your parents' reactions when they heard you forming a metal band and screaming your lungs out for the first time? Have they always been like supportive for what you have been doing?
Yeah, well, I mean, I lived with my mom, so my dad didn't really have anything to say. My mom was always has always been super supportive and very, very liberal lady. She never really gave me any hard, as a what do you call it, like a rebel in school. There were moments when there was trouble, when I had to sit with a teacher and my mom and a teacher, or someone would say that this is going to hell, and she was like displeased with that. But there was never like a demand of scholastic career or anything. She knew that I wanted to go my own way, and she's never really stood in the way of that at all. Very supportive. She's, one of my biggest... The reason why I'm sitting here, we can talk about rock and roll all day long, but one of the reasons why I'm here is because of her. Not only like biologically, but from a support point of view, and allowing me to fuck around like I did when I was a kid, and not choose to go the educational way.
Last question. Any advice that you would like to give to a young metal vocalist who is just about to start their journey? Anything that comes into your mind?
Sing a lot. That's the only way to learn. Sing a lot of different things. I think that this applies to everything. Whatever aesthetic you're into, if you're a filmmaker or you're playing guitar or flute or singing or writing poems, don't spend all of your time copying one singer or flutist or poet, because that will only make you regurgitate the same thing. And I think that metal genre especially is in the pop too. I mean, there's so many artists that you probably never heard of that want to be artists. The reason why they are not artists are because they are so influenced by this one artist that they want to be exactly like. And I have never had that problem, simply because I've always been almost equally influenced by female singers as I have been with male singers. And I knew early on that I'm not Rob Halford. I can't sing like him. I'm not King Diamond. I can't sing like him. So I have vocally more together. I can more easily sing a Blondie song, or I can sing along to Tori Amos. The same way I can sing along with Jeff Becerra, you know. And just being very open, and just take a lot of influences from more than just your favorite band, because that will get you probably nowhere.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.